I have seen a video from a technician who posts a lot of YouTube videos how he does repairs called Wrenching with Kenny. I'll put that description down below for his name. Well worth watching what the guy does and subscribing to his channel also. You're welcome to subscribe to my channel as well. He was talking about how he uses different kinds of equipment to make electrical connections on an automobile. And a lot of what he's talking about I've been doing, but there's something else that I am doing he didn't cover because it was outside the subject matter. This is an Apple Thunderbolt connector used to charge iPhones and iPads. It really is pretty well made, except for one thing. After a while, right here before it goes into the terminal coating, that cable tends to stretch back and forth a lot and start developing cracks and break open. And if we let that go on too far, the underlying wire, the metal conductive material, will break. So what I do is I cut a piece of heat shrink tubing to about this length. We don't have to have it real long, and just big enough to slip over the end of the connector, and then I slide that all the way down to pops out the other end. Then I go back and I coat most of the hard plastic terminal coating that they have, and then I use a heat gun made for the shrink wrap tubing to first attach to the end. Now this shrink wrap tubing is a little bit different than most. First of all, it's what's called marine shrink wrap. So inside there's a liquid adhesive when it gets hot, and when it cools off it solidifies, and it will help seal things off so that water doesn't get inside the connection at the one end. I don't use it for the waterproof aspect. I do it to anchor the shrink wrap tubing to this hard shell. Then once that has anchored, I'll hit this with the hot gun, and you notice that this diameter of the wire is much smaller than the inside diameter of the tubing. That's why I use 4:1 shrink wrap, not 3:1. It'll shrink down to 1/4 its diameter, not length, diameter, and makes for a better attachment at this end. Now the gun I use has a special tip that will cause hot air to reflect back, so I can get both ends or all sides basically of a hot air connection heated at one time. Now, word of caution: when using a hot gun, especially a reflector, keep your fingers away from the hot air. If this gets really hot, I've never measured temperature, but I know it is enough to blister. Go ahead, ask how I know. So I'll put this up. I have two different heats. I have low and high. I like high. This guy doesn't. This is made to stand. I'll put the Amazon link for this in the description. And then I go ahead. I just hit this. And you see where it shrunk down on the on the hard plastic. So that's under solid. So now let's go ahead and get the rest of it. Well, you smell the hot plastic. Look at that shrink up, that heat applied. Now, what you have is you have a much longer stress relief tube. When this cools off eventually, it will harden a bit, and so it's much firmer than this plastic, but not so firm that it's going to cause it to crack here. It distributes the stress of the bending and flexing over the whole length of this tubing here and makes for a much nicer, longer lasting cable. A couple of pennies, and it keeps me from having to spend 10, 12, 14, whatever dollars to get a kit like this every once in a while of replacement cable. I guess I just got tired of replacing them for the same reason. I hope that helps.